Ever since I was a little kid, I knew I was different, but never had the tools or language to express it. I recently came out as non binary, and gender expression has been a very important part of my experience. I tend to mix femininity and masculinity in multiple ways, such as binding my chest while wearing a skirt, or doing an intense makeup look but wearing all androgynous clothing. Besides fashion and style, there were some other changes I made. I stopped shaving my body hair and cut my hair off into a mullet. I predominantly use men's body wash, deodorant, and cologne. I grew up in a more traditional household, so these changes were a bit jarring to my family, and I've had to teach them about gender expression and why it is so important to me. I do believe that I had quite a dramatic change in gender expression, so it was very important to teach my parents about it. What I'm curious to know is if those with less extreme forms of gender expression have had similar experiences with their own parents.
Um, a range of more like androgynous of being like just kind of wearing whatever, like looser clothes, um, colors that aren't necessarily associated with like the typical like girl gender norm of pink and purple, like that stuff. That's probably more like my day to day, I would say. And then when I have like an event or like something that I'm going out, I tend to dress more like feminine.
I think my gender expression tends to be on the feminine side, certainly at times a little bit androgynous, but I identify very much with being a woman, and I really like the artistic, like aesthetic of being a woman, of what that looks like, even though it can look a lot of different ways.
Oh, I think my parents would be like really open to like anything, and I think that would probably be a good conversation to have because I know a lot of people, like some of my family members, some of my friends are like not the same way as I am. So, and they're very open-minded people, but it's just a generation difference where it's not something that they're thinking about constantly. So having a conversation would probably be good. As a kid, it was also all over the place. My mom like kind of let me wear whatever I wanted to wear. Like she tried to dress me when I was really little, and like for like Halloween she would always like suggest that I would be a princess or like all these things. But at the end of the day, when I didn't want to be that, she let me be like what I wanted to be and let me dress what I wanted to. So my outfits were horrible most of the time, but it was because I was 8. I am straight. I do identify as like a woman, but like I don't always dress like that. I wear a lot of men's clothing. Most of my clothes at this point from thrift stores are from the men's section. I think it's important to me. I think it's important that honestly anyone should be able to dress the way that they would like to dress. And I think like as I get older, I think I become like more like proud to be a woman. Yeah, I think I've had a couple of different conversations with my parents about gender expression, gender identity. I think the way that I dress is different than my siblings, and so if I happen to be dressing more masculinely or wearing men's clothing, um, if they have questions about that, or if that's not something they're used to seeing, then sometimes we'll have a conversation about what the way that I look means, and how that kind of is informed by my gender expression. And I also have a lot of friends and a lot of loved ones that don't identify within the binary of stereotypical gender and the genders that they were assigned at birth with. And so as I've been exploring that with the people that I care about, bringing my parents into that conversation as people who they would interact with has been important for me.
We were put in dresses and skirts when we were younger before we had, a choice of choosing our style. We wore a lot of pink and pastel colors. And when we went to school, we had to wear a uniform that was a romper or a dress or a skirt. So all of that was very stereotypical of a female presenting person. I think those conversations have helped them understand, and when they're confronted with people who don't conform to, their assigned gender at all, or at least
have different relationships with their gender than I do, I think they have been able to be a little bit more understanding because of those conversations. My mom was still calling wearing the opposite gender's clothing as like a stylistic choice, like cross-dressing a few years ago, which obviously isn't the correct term. Obviously, it's very offensive. And so, like, that was something I had to unteach her. It was like, no, it's just wearing clothes. It doesn't matter if they're originally made for men or women. It's a stylistic choice. And if someone is using clothing to express something about their gender, there are other ways to describe that.
Me? Man?
Male would be your gender identity.
Okay,
Gender expression is like how you present.
I see. Express myself as very much I can be kind of stoic, so that's probably a very traditional characteristic of men, opposed to overtly strong expressions of masculinity. And guys who are like super into like being tough guys, not my cup of tea, not my thing. People express themselves in lots of ways, and so the ability to be able to do that is important, and having sort of the confidence to be able to do that is important. And like, yes, we have female stereotypes and stereotypes of women, but I feel like the world needs women who kind of break those stereotypes. So, my mom was someone who, I guess you would probably say 45 years ago, did not fit the stereotype of women from I think she expressed herself as a very feminine woman, but she was also kind of a no nonsense, kind of like had no patience, no tolerance for, crap kind of person, which a lot of women in the, early 1970s probably were not like that. So rigid is to say, well, it's a boy, so therefore he gets a truck, and that's a girl, therefore she gets a doll. Society, people being open-minded to, people, how someone expresses themselves, there's no reason why a man or a woman has to conform to the expectations of society, I think as long as you're a person who's a good human being and you're contributing to society in a meaningful way, then you want to, again, like when I was a kid, boys and men all dressed and behaved a certain way. And today, I think that boys and men can dress and behave in lots of different ways, and everyone's like okay with that. I think that's good. At a certain point, you got to have, parents have to take a role, and particularly with really young kids, because like little kids don't always understand these things. That ability of a boy or a girl, particularly at a young age, if they express themselves maybe contrary to norms and stereotypes, I think that's fine, but I think that's something that parents should be really heavily involved in. I think that's a little kid, again, I don't think fully understands. They know themselves and they know how they want to behave, and I think that's good enough. And I think that's a parent's job, then, is to try and sort that out. So
awesome. Do you have any other thoughts on gender expression?
I don't think about it a lot, if I'm being honest.
Good.